The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
I'm CJ.
And I'm Carlos.
And it's Friday, TGIF.
Well, I'll tell you something. Coming in, you knew it was fun.
Right.
On the radio, I got to hear the Drug Abuse Grant Coordinator. That's his new title for Drug Czar. And I have never heard an unprofessional person in my life as much as I heard this guy. And it makes me sick that he is all for spending tax dollars on providing drug services to people who don't want it. And he brought something out very clearly. Number one, the police department is now going to start acting as social workers and psychiatrists. They're going to get paid to do that now. They had to get in their contracts put in there for the ability to administer Narcan, which I can understand that. Got liability issues. But he misrepresented everything. You know, this is kind of like the mantra of the career administration. You know, and when we walked into the studios today, we were accosted. We were attacked by the Force. The dark side of the Force. Darth Vader was right at the door. So you have to laugh because this guy is talking about millions of dollars. You know what?
It doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. And you know what? The hell with the criminals. The hell with murder. The hell with theft. You know, the hell with car accidents, bodily injury, rape. Because you know what? Our police officers and our fire department have to run out and administer 5, 6, and 7 doses of Narcan to somebody who doesn't want help. And the real kicker is, because you know the mayor and this buffoon keep saying that, oh, well, you know, you can't limit the dose of Narcan to 1 dose. No, you can't, and I understand that. I'm a healthcare provider. I can understand that. But you know what? There's no force of treatment because he admitted it. He goes, you can't force them in. They have to want to go in for help. If they wanted to go in for help, they wouldn't have just taken 20 bags of heroin and been found in the bathroom at McDonald's.
Yeah, well,
you know, the old saying is you can't fix stupid. And I'm not talking about the people who are addicted. I'm talking about the people who are running the show.
Well, look. Let's face it, CJ. The fact is, it's a self-interest. I mean, he's got a job that basically is predicated on him making this program as large as possible, so he can continue to write grants and get percentages and basically have a job. And you know, this is government at its best. You know, the police department, I mean, we have one of the, you know, unfortunately, we have one of the highest crime cities in the state. Our police department has a difficult enough job attempting to keep this city safe. They're not, as you said, you are a healthcare professional. They are not healthcare professionals. They are not trained, and they can't be trained to do the job properly. There are professionals that are trained who are specialists in this. Can they administer Narcan? Yeah. But the fact is now they're going to have to be psychologists and psychiatrists. And we saw what happened up in Taunton. They're blaming the hospital for letting the guy go. And now they're going to fire the private entity that does the screening. And it's always somebody else's fault. You know, I mean, that's the problem with the society today. It's always somebody else's fault. Nobody takes responsibility. The fact is that I'm getting feedback, CJ, on the mic.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to fix this problem.
Yeah. You know, the reality is that the only people that can fix a drug addict is the drug addict himself. Mm-hmm. When they want to do it, it has to be them. All the help in the world does not, and it becomes enabling. You know, the first thing they have to do is realize it and want to kick the habit, and most of them don't, unfortunately. And to give them multiple doses, most of them get upset And the police officers and the firefighters who are administering this thing, they're indemnified by the city. So what happens if we get a slew of lawsuits about this, like what's going to happen up in Taunton? It's totally out of control. And government, again, figured out a way to spend a ton of money, give a ton of jobs out. Just like if you've been reading about Rhode Island did it again. We saw the rep that had his own nonprofit that didn't exist. There was just another news article. I can pull it up and read it off my phone. But I guess another state representative's wife got some grants for the Bolivian, some Bolivian society that was supposed to be a nonprofit, and in spite of the fact that they weren't a nonprofit, filed a false tax identification number. They still got the grants. Why? Because he's a rep.
Well, my
So
question
again, but before you ask the question, the fact is, this is why we always say you can't give them money and you have to watch them all the time.
Well, my question is, did they take the lesson from Fall River, or did Fall River take the lesson from them? I think Fall River's the one giving the classes. I think there's a big conference being held on that very shortly.
I'll tell you, it just goes to show what happens when, this is why politicians don't like scrutiny. They like to talk a lot. They like to make speeches, and they like to make promises, and they like to spin these myths. We're going to fix Fall River with a walking path, and we're going to fix Fall River with cobblestone on a side street, and all these things are going to fix it, and life is going to be beautiful, even though nobody's got any money.
Kumbaya, kumbaya.
And we got a city councilor who, I think, if my memory serves me correctly, a while back was reading the stats about poverty in Fall River and low income. Now at an ordinance meeting says, I'm sick and tired of hearing people say they can't afford bags. Well, they're
Oh, you're talking about Steve Long?
Yes, exactly.
Well, while we're on that, let's go off into a letter from a viewer.
If I may,
Go ahead.
CJ, and on the drug issue, what happened in Taunton this week just came to prove what the version that I support on the drug issue. We have the money to spend. Let's spend the money on those that are asking for help, okay? Because that just came to prove. Why are we spending money on people that don't want to be treated when it's people that really sick and looking for treatment, and we have to let them go because we don't have money to treat them? That's just came to prove that what I'm saying, it's the right way to do it. Instead of spending $1 million and 1,000 people that don't want to be treated, let's spend $1 million in 2 people that wants to be treated, that needs to be treated.
And
if that was the case, today we would not have that case that happened in Taunton.
And Carlos,
because they just let them go because it's no money to be treat them, to keep them there and treat them and get them through the whole program. Instead, let's let them out on the streets. Okay, a person that is given himself to be, to be in treatment, but let's spend money on those that, we're going to fix them, bring them to life this morning, and tonight he's back again with the problem. So,
but Carlos, the thing is that decision was made by a third-party vendor for the Commonwealth. And we know that our governor, who's all about health care because that's where he came from, he is the one allowing this to happen. And now all of a sudden he's calling out a huge investigation into it. I used to work for a couple of private vendors for the Commonwealth. And let me tell you something, like it or not, there are bonuses built into not spending money. Imagine that. Which means if you don't spend money, that means people don't get treated. And for them, the mentally ill are the biggest commodity going because they keep them in therapy just to keep collecting the money, get the blood work, and then send them on their merry way. It's a way of wasting money, and we know how the healthcare system is.
Well, yeah, well, that's the reality. The reality is, look, we've talked about healthcare in general. The fact is that you know, you are in the profession. You know what DRGs are.
Yep.
And you also know that there are batteries of tests that are authorized by every healthcare carrier for particular diagnosis. And that's what they do. It's not about help patient care. They run them into a room, they look at how many tests they can run, what they're required to do, and once they get everything they can bill for, you're out of there. In 90% of the cases, you're out. They've kicked people out of the hospital because of the DRGs, even though they needed to stay in the hospital. It happened to me, someone in my family. And they tried to, but fortunately I knew the system. They were going to transfer my mother out of the hospital, and I said, she's still, you know, she hasn't had, you know, she came in for 2 diagnoses, she only treated 1. And I said, I know why you're throwing her out, because this is the amount of time that and in order to get more time, you have to fill out too much paperwork. And I said, well, I'm going to sue you if you don't, because what they want to do is they release them or they send them to a rehab. And once they have that break in service, they can come back and start rebilling all over again. It's all about money. And like you said, it shouldn't be about this. It should be about providing patient care to the people who really want to be cared for. But it's not. It's a revolving door. It's a money-making thing. And the question is, as you said, Charlie Baker was in the healthcare and say, why did our state, in its infinite wisdom, decide to have third-party vendors, more people with their fingers in the pie and more people who you can't control, because now they're an independent organization working within the hospital that you have absolutely no control over. So what do? They're going to have to fire them and hire somebody else. So we're going to do the same thing again, just like TSA at the airports. Now people are beginning to fire the TSA, because what happened? The federal government created this agency, and as usual, government can't do anything right, and that's the bottom line. So it's a tragedy. And what happens? People are dead, people are injured because of that, and this individual was shot. And who knows, maybe if he got the proper care, this thing would have never happened.
Yeah, it would have never happened, that's for sure. And you know, this is the problem we're having. I don't even know if people can hear me.
Bailey, you're a little low, but there's no feedback.
All right, let me see if I can fix this problem. I hate this situation. There
you go.
There we go.
There we go. It's amazing how the system's working lately.
I'm not surprised that somebody's trying to lower your voice down.
And I jokingly said before the show, this is state TV. We're blocking out Spindle City Straight Talk. But a letter was sent from a viewer to actually the entire city council. It says, point of information, the following text was sent to me by former city councilor Mike Mioza, who received the text from city council president Sean Kadim this morning. It reads as follows. The Mike Mioza ordinance was violated by the council president. You should share with your friend Sue that she should do her homework and have the facts in advance to spreading more misinformation and blindly following the administration, unless, of course, that is the intent. So ordinance reads budget updates for first meeting in January, April, and October. First meeting in April was the 5th. Budget update was not run until April 13th, according to the Munistate. So one can only summarize that the violation was with the administration. But as president, I'll accept blame on behalf of the administration for once again ignoring ordinance. Great to see you last night. First and foremost, why this text was sent to Mike is a mystery. That's the truth. I'm not going to read the whole letter because it's going to take up too much time. But she says very clearly in here, it appears that someone is not telling the truth. And I suggest to you, Councilor President Kadim, that you take this up with the administration. She does say that, she spoke to Kathy Ann, who said no, was ready to go. Based on the information that was available to me, she stands by her statements. She takes offense to the statement accusing her of blindly following the administration. I am no one's puppet and quite capable of forming my own opinion about issues. In fact, here's my opinion about the situation. I believe the pressure is getting to you, Council President Kadim, as along with your inability or refusal to rein in on your council members as evidenced by their behavior last evening, in spite of the letter you sent to them on April 25th, 2016, pointing out examples of their inappropriate behavior. I'm requesting you step down as council president. This continues to be a total lack of decorum on the part of the councils, and you do nothing to stop it. I'm also asking if you refuse to remove yourself as council president for a vote of no confidence by the city councils with regards to your ineffective leadership. I, as well as many others, would like to know for future reference where they stand on the issue. Sue Mathias. Now, I asked Sue if it was okay to send this to all the city councilors, and she said yes. So now, city councilors, you're on notice. Will one of you propose a vote of no confidence against the council president? Because I think right now that's necessary, and we have to have it, one way or the other.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm looking at this statement that's supposedly a quote from Mr. Kadim, and he says, should do your homework, spreading misinformation and blindly following, unless, of course, that is the intent. So what does he mean? So if you're intentionally spreading misinformation, it's okay? If that's your intent? Or is he going to hold people to being accurate? It's citizens' input. And if, you know, I mean, if we're going to hold people to accuracy, I think we should begin with our financial team in the city of Fall River and our politicians, because, you know, they never get anything right. They never ever come up with a number that we can take to the bank. It's constantly being revised, constantly being updated, and, you know, stuff like this is just, look, people have the right. This is why it's called citizens' input. And if you're in a minority, even if you're in a minority, if you look at every rule of order, there is a mechanism for a minority opinion.
Yep.
So even if you're the only person, you have a right as an American to voice your opinion. You can get voted down, you know, that's it. Yeah, so, but that's the process. The process is you can get up and go, I'm against this, and then if the other 99 people out of 100 say, well, too bad, well, you have to go home, but you had your day, you spoke your piece, you said your piece, you stood up, and, we're not, we shouldn't be, now we're going to start getting worried about what the date of the Munis report was, and, it's minutia. Yeah. That's all it is. It's just a diversionary tactic to take away from the fact that the city council now has become not a 3-ring circus, but a 4-ring circus.
What I think is funny is you have the pot calling the kettle beige, okay? Because you have Sean Kadim asking for accuracy, and he's the one that knew of the windows going in. So, and he never said anything about it until it served his purpose.
The only thing I have to say about this is it's obvious that this becoming a personal issue.
Yeah,
More than
you think?
He's so approach the city council as a taxpayer, as a citizen. Yeah. From the city, and for this tax to be sent to Mike Mioza, this puts in a personal issue more than just a regular citizen request.
You're right. You're right, Carlos. That's she went up there as a citizen. She made a statement. And as far as I'm concerned, they don't want to listen to us at Citizens Input anyway, and they very rarely comment. And as a citizen, she made a statement. This is what her information basically told her. Now, as far as I'm concerned, as our representatives, the only obligation they had about that is if they had any questions to ask them, and then if that information is incorrect, to say they were going to research it and then correct it so everybody understands. That's one of the reasons that people go in front of the city council, because sometimes they actually, if they paid attention, we actually have the answers. Like the time they couldn't find the decision, they couldn't find the legal decision, and CJ pulled it up on his phone in like 12 seconds. We were reading it in the audience, and it's like, really? And it's like, these people,
And the worst part about it was I sent that decision to every city councilor that I had their cell phone number as a text. Now, they're always looking at their cell phones or their paperwork, but when I sent them that, nobody saw it.
Well,
because this is what happens.
Oh, this is government. They were going to blow the Dominion case. They were trying to get everybody to spend more money because they were going to appeal. And everybody in that chamber, except the city council and our city law department, knew that they were going to lose that case, and they did. And who?
and we had the decision already.
And who paid for it? We did. Yeah. As usual, we paid for it.
Well,
But this is the problem. Look, everybody can go up there and is entitled to their opinion, and if they're wrong, they can be corrected, and they should be corrected, and for their own, but the people have a right to get up there.
No, they don't, Chip.
And they get, well, they
No,
also
they
have
don't.
they also have a right to clap, too.
Yeah.
But
Ray Mitchell said it. I don't have time to listen to citizen input. They don't listen to us, and we know that.
But
So-
this is the, this is what really upsets me about this whole process, because there's this movement that is actually anti-government.
Right.
It's anti-government what they're doing. They're doing everything they can to suppress the rights of the people to speak. They do everything they can to suppress the right of the people to express what they feel. And these are the people that they're being paid to represent. They are our or they're supposed to be, but no, look what happens. Look what happened in Providence again. You get a representatives for some Bolivian society that's not even legal. They get money, but we can't get money for the Coughlin School. But they're going to give out, we get back to my favorite thing, my CPA, which we're going to be working against. But the fact is that this is why you can't let them have discretionary money.
Well, you opened the door to this one, so I'm going right to it.
All right, let's go.
And if you go right to the last 2 pages of your notes for the day, you have a letter from Robert Redford, dated May 6th. I have the privilege of working on 2 films in Newport. The first time since 1974 with The Great Gatsby, and most recently in the film The Discovery. I am grateful to have had the opportunity to become reacquainted with the city and its people. I was pleasantly surprised that some 40 years later, the city looks and feels almost exactly as it did when I first came here. I commend the community for the vision and care demonstrated to ensure the preservation of its historical and cultural significant properties. Finally, I was most appreciative of the hospitality extended to me and my colleagues during our stay in Newport. For me, the welcoming and warm spirit of the community will not soon be forgotten. Signed, Robert Redford.
Well,
and you know what? This is where we go. This is what your CPA money is doing. We don't have anything in Fall River that's historically significant anymore. We haven't maintained any of it. We haven't preserved any of it. We've got the Lizzie Board and Bed and Breakfast on 2nd Street. They had to film in Canada for the TV show because across the street from it is a courthouse. There is nothing in this city that can be easily transformed into the 1800s or even the 1900s. Okay, and that's the problem. You go to Newport, you walk down Cliff Walk, and guess what? It still looks like it did when that whole area first came into existence. With a few minor changes, but it's nothing that can't be easily changed.
Yeah, well, you got to remember one thing. We're going to out-tourist a place like Newport.
That's right.
Here's one of the most famous movie actors and directors in the history of film commenting. But they have things that what they did was they capitalized on what they had.
That's right.
They took their mansions and they preserved them. They've got the beaches and they've preserved them, and they've also gotten new things. You've got the walkways downtown. You've got Brick Alley. You've got all these things. They did a nice job up there because but they understood what their strengths were and where their weaknesses were. That town is really, really, suited for tourism. Of course, you had the America's Cup races there and everything else. It's got a great history of that. It's on the water,
But this is a message. This is a message to the people like.
But it's a reality check.
That's
though.
right.
They understand that they can do tourism. There's some places that tourism cannot be their major industry, and Fall River is one of them. And that's why we have to realize that, what we have to do is preserve jobs first. This is a blue-collar town. The thing is that Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is never going to be Newport, Rhode Island.
That's right.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania had steel mills, and it was steel town, and that's what their heritage is. And it's about blue-collar jobs, and this is the thing that always bothers me. There's no sense of reality. They got their heads so far up their derrieres they can't breathe, and they keep giving us this same old crap, like, okay, we're going to fix Fall River with cobblestones on Purchase Street and a walkway to the Taunton River. Really? Come on.
One thing is preserve monuments, a house. Another thing is preserving an area. And preserving an area has a lot to do, and that's exactly what Newport did.
That's right.
If you go to Newport, you go to an area that you're still back on the 1800, but you go to an area that is updated. You are in 2016.
Yeah.
But they didn't mix both together.
Yeah.
And that's the problem we've been having in Fall River, knocking down history.
Yeah.
And historic buildings bring us to what we have right at one area that identifies Fall River all over the world. It's
But,
you know,
yeah.
the Second Street, the Second Street.
The biggest problem is this. You have people like Jim Sewell and the Historical Preservation Commission, and I'm not picking on Jim. I like Jim a lot. He's a nice guy. But you have to understand, there is nothing left to preserve. And I'm going to make a statement which I've made before. Maybe it's time to stop bringing in the demolition ball and the backhoes and starting to take it all down. And I'm sorry to say it, but the city, over its numerous administrations, have demolished any sense of historic preservation. Historic preservation now is single buildings here, there, and everywhere. It's not a whole area. And the problem with that is this. We now take city taxpayer money and give it to private companies, private businesses to put on a new roof.
Yeah, you're right. And you know something, CJ, this is another classic example of their inability to look at things realistically and objectively. Newport identified what they had, what they worked with. They had the mansions. It signified an era. What does Fall River have? No, they want to be Newport. We can't be Newport. And I've said it before. Why don't we have some kind of thing built? Why don't we have something that really goes back to an era? A lot of people in this community don't realize Fall River had the best amateur soccer team in the United States of America at one time. The Ponta Delgada Club had the best soccer team in the country. They won the championship a couple times. Now, soccer's a huge sport in this country, and it's a huge sport in the world. It's the most popular sport in the world outside of America, but it's very popular. Now, why don't we have something to deal with soccer? Why don't we have soccer leagues? Why don't we have a soccer complex where we can host tournaments and say, come to a city that has a history in soccer? Why don't we do something? Why don't we do something like that? Why don't we take one mill and make it a museum? Not because, but let's have a realistic museum.
The problem
because
is,
we're going to have a mill that shows that we once had a textile thing, but people worked hard. But then you can, when you get people in to see these things, then you can say, come get our ethnic food.
we
But
need
no,
to stop.
not Fall River.
We need to stop imitating the others
That's
and
right.
identify ourselves first.
Exactly.
When we identify ourselves, now we have a goal to move forward.
Yep. And you know, I've got to get onto this real quick, and you know, I know we can talk for
2 minutes.
for hours because we only got a minute left or so. It's called the double whammy for gateway cities. Clark University came out with this, and I'm just going to read the top paragraph here. The combination is trouble because it means developers have little incentive to build new housing units in gateway cities, and existing landlords can charge more for the units they rent out. The result, low-income renters end up paying a disproportionate amount of their income for housing. It's a vicious cycle that shows no sign of abating on its own. And originally there were only 11 gateway cities in Massachusetts, there's now 27. So this shows you what's happening. And this Clark University report is available. You can get it on Commonwealth Magazine, and it shows you very clearly that, number one, market rate housing isn't going to happen in Fall River, and number two, that the rents have to go up because the landlords can't afford it anymore. And this is the double whammy. Property values are going down. The investors are buying the properties at low rates, and they're renting them at high rates. You can't fix the problem. You can't fix it.
Yeah, well, we'll have to get into this, but I'll see you all next Friday, people.
Yeah, you're going on assignment. That's right.
That's right, I'm on assignment. I'm going undercover.
All right, talk to you later. See you
Stay
next week.
angry.